ultimately end up as carbon dioxide and water. The pathway is called a cycle because oxaloacetate is the starting and ending compound of the pathway. For every glucose that enters glycolysis, the cycle completes twice, once for each molecule of pyruvate that entered the mitochondria. During pyruvate oxidation and the citric acid cycle, a net of 8 NADH, 2 FADH2, 2 ATP, and 6 CO2 are produced for each glucose molecule. In order to...
So right now, a ton of electrons have been picked up, okay? But we haven't seen anything happen yet with those electrons. We've seen very little ATP get produced. We see that CO2 has gotten produced, and that's our waste. We've got to get rid of that.
To understand how the majority of the energy is produced by aerobic respiration, we need to follow the NADH and FADH2 molecules to the next stage, the electron transport chain. The electron transport chain is a series of membrane-bound carriers in the mitochondria that pass electrons from one to another. As the electrons are transferred between the membrane proteins, the cell is able to capture energy and use it to produce ATP molecules. Proteins in the chain pump hydrogen ions across a membrane. When the hydrogen ions flow back across the membrane through an ATP synthase complex, ATP is synthesized by the enzyme ATP synthase. Oxygen acts as the terminal electron acceptor. By accepting electrons, oxygen is reduced to form water, a byproduct of the electron transport chain. All the high-energy electron carriers from the previous stages of cellular respiration bring their electrons into the chain. From this, the bulk of ATP from the entirety of cellular respiration is produced, a net of 32 to 36 ATP. In summary, we have seen how the 4 stages of cellular respiration are responsible for converting the energy found in the glucose molecule into ATP, the energy battery of the cell. On average, 36 ATP molecules are produced per glucose molecule that entered the cell. In the process of producing ATP, oxygen is brought in from the bloodstream to be the final electron acceptor in the electron transport chain.
What did she just say?
Net 36 ATP.
Oxygen is a terminal electron acceptor?
Oxygen is the terminal electron acceptor. This is the only place the body uses oxygen. This is how the body uses oxygen. We tend to think oxygen, 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 oxygen. This is where it gets used.
And the carbon dioxide that is produced as a byproduct is released. The goal of cellular respiration is to transfer the energy from the food that we eat daily into ATP that our bodies can use. This process starts with the eating of a snack or meal and ends with capturing the energy from the complete breakdown of the nutrients into energy and carbon dioxide. How do you turn that bite of food into...
How do you turn that bite of food into the energy? John?
Cellular respiration, but that doesn't answer your question. But I had a question. Like the first video said glycolysis nets 4 ATP, and the second one said it nets 2.
Because
so, like, it just depends on where you start, like what you're starting.
No. For glycolysis to occur, we need 2 ATP invested. So even though it produced 4, 2 are taken because it required it at the beginning, so you only net 2. So it might produce 4, but the net is 2.
So does oxygen become ionized because it's the electron acceptor in the electron transport chain?
What it does is, because oxygen molecule itself, the outer shell has 6 electrons.
Yep.
If you saw, it picked up 2 hydrogens
To complete its outer shell, right?
to complete its outer shell.
Okay.
And therefore, this was, do you guys remember me mentioning that we have a way that the body will make water? That's it. But it's not in any way enough to be the water we need throughout the day. Okay? So it's at that point, oxygen is used. Think about all the oxygen molecules in your body. But at the same time, think about how many cells of the body are having to produce energy. Think about the amount of energy needed by heart cells, nerve cells, skeletal muscle cells. That number is just too much for me to even think about. So, cellular respiration glycolysis, which we'll pick up on Wednesday. Okay, so what we'll do now, let you guys look at your test.